Hello. Hi. I hope I'm audible. Can someone actually give a confirmation that if you are able to hear me? Okay, great. So, hello. Welcome to the first day of Decoding Domains. Okay, there was a lag and I got confused. So yeah, this is Aditya here, and I'm conducting this session with Haridarshan here, a fellow web developer who is interning at a very nice place. He's now a professional web developer. So yeah, we have planned a very fun session. There, as a beginner, you get the introduction, but as an intermediate, you might be introduced to some concepts which we generally overlook or we miss. So most importantly, the hands-on session is going to be amazing for the people who are starting as well as people who are already familiar with the web dev, because we will make use of APIs, and we will explain some JavaScript concepts that will make you a better developer in general and also help you build dynamic websites very quickly. So and yeah, we will also provide you the starter code. We'll give the link to the starter code and you can start with that. So without any further ado, let's just start with it. So yeah, intro to web dev. Let's enter the magical world of sites and servers. As you can see that we have placed so many GIFs and stickers on the PPT because we don't want to bore you to death and we want to keep it very short. So yeah, let's just have a brief introduction of both the speakers. I am the Google DSC lead this year for RAIT. I am a full stack web developer. I am a Flutter enthusiast, and I have been contributing in open source projects, and I am a speaker in general. So that's about me. And this is Haridarshan.
So I'm Haridarshan Chaudhary. I really like doing web stuff, and currently I'm product engineer intern at Tealfeed, a web developer, open source contributor, and I just like to discuss about tech. So you can just ping me up on my Twitter if you want.
That's nice. Don't flood his DMs. I hope you won't do that. Anyway, so asking the question, first things first, that why web development? So before starting with any technology, if it is mobile, if it is anything, if it is even data science, the first question you should ask is why. And the first answer that you should come up with is that are you fascinated with it or not? So yeah, if you are fascinated with web, you should pursue web development. If you want to dive deep into the big world of sites and servers, you want to figure out what else you can do on a browser window, you want to use the developers tools, you want to see what goes on behind a website's screen that you see. So that's what it is. Like, if you are fascinated with it, you should pursue it. And a web dev community is a very big community and a very inclusive community. Even in the open source world, the web developers are in great number and are very inclusive and help each other a lot. And also, if you have no problem banging your head against a desk with solving a JS bug, then web development is for you. So yeah, that's us coding at 3 a.m. in the night. So yeah. uh, Anyway, the thing which you should know is the basics. The basics are how the web works or the internet works. So the browser goes to the DNS server. So okay, let's first understand what is a DNS server. So what is internet? Internet is not a virtual thing. Like, it is actually connected everywhere with cables. Not many people actually believe that, but it is the truth that we are connected through the internet through cables which are underwater, which are underground. And you can actually see the map of these cables on a site called submarine cables, I guess. Yeah, submarinecables.com, something like that. You can google it. And the thing is that all these computers are connected through a single big large network of wires, and there are certain computers which serve the information or the data to other computers. And as the name suggests, server, that the role is to serve the data. So the domain name system server has the addresses of the websites that you want, and the domain name server would actually find the address of the website that that you want to access through your browser. So now the browser sends an HTTP request to the server asking it to send a copy of the website. So the domain name server would search for the like the system server would actually search for the address and send it to the browser, and the browser would render it. Now, if the server approves the client's request, the server sends the client a 200 OK message, and then you get the Then you get the site on your browser which you want, and it sends it as a series of small chunks called data packets. Now this is very straightforward to understand, and the browser assembles these small chunks into a complete web page and it gets displayed to you. So this is the basic of what we actually just went through, that the client requests, the server responds, and this is how web and internet actually works. Now, yes, that wasn't magic. That was very easy, and that was very easy to understand. So it is not a big thing. It is very easy to understand, and you can build websites very easily. So what tech should I need to start? So first is HTML. HTML is the very basic element that you need, that it provides structure. Then you have CSS. CSS is for the styling of the website, and then you have JavaScript, which provides the functionality. So this is the perfect way to actually describe it, that HTML is giving you just a structure, as you can see, and the HTML plus CSS, you can see a beautiful crocodile who is of a blue color. So it all depends on you which color do you want to give to your structure. So that's how CSS would work. And then we have plus JavaScript, which JavaScript giving you the functionality. Then, as the web development umbrella opens, you have a front end and you have a back end, under which you have other things that you need to cater to. So the front end actually consists of UI. We have a session on UI and UX on 6th of October. You can join us even then to dive into this deeper. UI is basically the user interface which you see on the browser, and the experience is a different thing. UI and UX, they would actually brief, like they'll give a detailed differentiation between UI and UX then too. So let's not get into that. Then we have state management. State management is basically part of even mobile development when it comes to other technologies like Flutter and everything. State management is basically how to how the website state is interacting with the user. So that's about state management. And then backend. Now backend has many technologies. The authorization part, which kind of is kind of giving security, and it checks which client wants to access the server. The servers, which are essential to provide you the data. The database, which you have to maintain, and then the REST APIs. Now before I start talking about REST APIs, I think Haridarshan has a very deep, insightful knowledge on APIs, and he would like to continue after that, like for the API thing. So basically, I'll just tell you about the front end frameworks and back end frameworks. The front end frameworks which you can use are Angular, Vue.js, React, Svelte, Redux, and all these are actually based on the three things which we talked about, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because these form the basis of these things. Like these are just frameworks, but you need to know the basics. For example, if you want to learn React, you need to learn JavaScript's basics, because it uses a language called JSX, which is based on JavaScript. So that is actually a shorter form of writing things. So frameworks actually make your work easy, and that's why these are very famous, and they make our life very, very, very easy with their built-in functionalities. And same goes with the backend technologies. We have Django, we have Node.js, we have Express.js, we have Flask, we have and the databases are of different types. You can use SQL or you can use NoSQL, and that completely depends on the website you're building on. So even for backend, you have various technologies as an option. And now getting to REST API, I would ask Haridarshan, please continue.
So recently we Aditya told you that we are using something called REST APIs. So what are actually REST APIs? So previously, like a lot time ago, when we had like web was a new thing. What used to happen that whenever you go to a site, you actually ask the server to return the HTML and CSS and the JavaScript files and stuff. Okay, so the HTML is returned, and then that HTML is actually rendered onto your screen. But nowadays we have like front end frameworks like React and Angular, which are like pretty modern, and they can do all those stuff on their own. Like they can change the HTML, they can do the DOM manipulations for you. Then why do you need to like ping the server again and again just to get that HTML, the same HTML again and again? Because like we do have a different HTML coming, but a lot of it is similar. So what these front end frameworks do is they basically compare that what is new, and they mount that. They basically compare what is new and they mount that onto your browser, and then the data is just called. So the REST APIs part, Aditya, I guess you changed the slide. Okay. So the REST APIs part, what happens is that you actually request the server, and the server will just respond you with the data. And based on that data, you'll take the data, you convert it. You'll not convert it into the HTML, but you have the HTML. You pass in the data to the HTML, and then you render it down. So that's basically about REST APIs. Uh, and okay, so let's say that you are a guy who says that I'm hungry and I want to do everything. I want to do web development. I want to do app development. I want to make PC apps and whatnot. So I got you covered. So if you so basically, JavaScript, if you learn JavaScript, HTML, CSS, you'll see that the same tech is actually used in a lot of in a lot of cases. So we have a lot of runtimes and a lot of frameworks to build servers and apps too. So for example, if you have to make a server, you can use Node.js or Express.js, which is a framework built on Node.js. You can use Electron.js to make PC apps. For example, you have Microsoft Teams. Which is built on Electron.js. And one more example is VS Code. VS Code is also built on Electron.js. So basically, we have like everything, uh, the same tech stack, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you serve that onto a Chromium-based browser type thing, instance of the browser using Electron.js. Then we have Ionic and React Native to make like hybrid mobile apps, Android apps, iOS apps with the same tech stack, like with JavaScript. And in React Native, we don't really use HTML, CSS, but the structure is almost the same. The architecture and the structure is almost the same. Then, so in this case, like JavaScript can say like I know everything, and that's the truth. Like it's a great language, and we'll cover like more in depth about JavaScript. So there are some stats for nerds. Like if you're still not convinced that okay, I don't want to do web development, tell me some stats. So it's estimated that over 1.7 billion websites exist currently, and also almost every business has a website. Hence, almost every business is going to need a web developer. So according to the US News, we have that web developer is the eighth best tech career to have, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics projects web developer employment to grow 8% over the next decade. Now, this is for US, but this can be again projected to predict a lot of things. And finally, trust me, you will love it. So if you move next, so let's say that you are convinced. So what next? Like what are we going to do? So we are having a hands-on session, and we are going to create a website. So let's go.
So basically now Haridarshan will take you to the hands-on session like he has on his PC. I'll actually put the link to the startup code in just a minute, and then Haridarshan, you can start with the coding part.
Okay, so just let me know that the screen is visible to you. So
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah.
okay, so fine. So I guess you would have like you have that link into the description. So just follow the commands. These are Git commands, and we'll cover these commands later. Like we will having sessions on Git and GitHub and how to contribute to open source. So just git clone, and you will paste that URL here, and you can just clone it out. So once you clone it, you'll get a Git Finder thing here. So there are two branches in this repository. So uh, I just want you to like check out. Uh, sorry, I just want you to check out from the master, like the main branch, and go to the another branch which is start. So git checkout start. Uh, okay, I'll just increase the font for you. So git checkout start, and uh, just a minute. Okay, so I cloned Git Finder, so I have to go into this folder because that's the Git repository. So cd into the Git folder. Okay, Git Finder. That's a typo. Make sure you are spelling it right, unlike me. So now we can do Git checkout and start. So you'll see that you have this thing here, and we have uh, like few files here. We have index.html. I'll just open a new instance with this so that we only have that on the screen. So, okay, I do have one open already. So you'll see that we have this uh, index.html file. Okay, so we have this index.html file, and if you inspect this, index.html file, it's going to have some like doc type thing and HTML language and all these things. So what this doc type does, it basically says that we are going to use HTML5 syntax here, and we have this HTML language English basically. So these are some basic stuff. So if you move ahead, we have head tag, and inside we have meta, which basically says that which character set you are using. So we are using UTF-8 encoding, which is basically a standard encoding. Then we have like the HTTP equivalent. So these are some standard headers that you need to pass, the name, viewport, content, with device with, because this would like adapt your HTML file to based on the screen. So if you are using mobile screen, then it won't the mobile screen won't replicate or won't behave as a PC screen. It would be like taking the viewport. It would be adjusting the viewport according to your device. Then we have this title, which is the something which would be displayed onto your tab. We have linked a style sheet with style.css, and we have this file here. I'll tell more about this file just a minute. So, and then we have this body where we have few tags already defined, the main tag, p tag, form, and stuff. We'll just see how this is, what this is, and uh, why they are all here. And then at the end, I'm linking some script. I'm linking a script here, which is basically JavaScript, and it's currently empty. So if you see the folder structure, you will get to know that, okay, so this is script.js. So it actually checks it in this folder and finds script.js and links it out. And we have the style.css and links that out too. Okay, and apart from this, I also have this search icon, uh, which is basically a PNG image. So now what are we going to build? So if that's your question, so we are going to build something like this, which is Git Finder. I named it Git Finder. And if I pass in like my Git username, then it would fetch all the details from my GitHub account, and it will display it here. Okay, and if you replace it by someone else, uh, so you can have the details of that person too. And apart from that, it's also responsive. So like if you have a phone screen, if you have a mobile screen, then it would be like it would adapt accordingly. So, and what we have here, so this is a final product, and what we have here looks like this. So we have we have defined some HTML tags, and this is the result for all those HTML tags, and we are going to style these to uh, look to make it look similar to this. And with that, we are going to add some functionality like the APIs and stuff. Okay, so I guess like we can start with that. Okay, so uh, first of all, let's start with styling. So I have also already like provided the class names so that I don't end up wasting all of my time writing class names or the ID or whatever it is. And also I've already written this class names selectors here. So I'll also explain how these selectors work, and we can at the same time code and check that what result is given it is giving. And apart from that, we I have defined some CSS variables. So why I have defined CSS variables? Because let's say you want to like give a color to a particular section, but that kind of section repeats again and again. So instead of changing that color for that section every time, you just basically define a variable under the root, and then you can use it like anywhere and create that. So in the star selector, which basically selects the complete HTML file, first I want to do some common changes. Like I want to set the margin and padding to 0, and also the box sizing to border box. So what this is going to do is like we obviously this is going to make the margin 0, padding 0, and the box sizing is going to be border box. So what this border box means is like if this border box was not set, then the width or the height of the box is going to be calculated as if the content plus the padding plus the margin. But so if even if you like say that the width is 50 pixels, it won't appear 50 pixels because of the padding and margin which is available. So I say that the margin and padding should be inherently 0. If I want, I can update it depending on the component. And then the box sizing to be border box, so that if I define a width of 50 pixels, it should be 50 pixels. If margin or anything is added, then it would like adjust accordingly the content size. Okay. Now then I have this screen selector, which is basically the ID, which I have given to the body tag. Okay, so this is for the complete screen. So what I want to do with the screen is like, uh, you'll see that this is centered in the, this is centered, this whole container is centered, and we also want this all stuff to be like be in center. So uh, we'll just give a main height here, which would be like defining the main height, and I'll say it's 100 vh. So what is mean by 100 vh? V is for viewport and h is for height, so vh means viewport height. So the main height will always be 100 vh. Then the display, I'll set the display to flex. Now flex is something like, uh, we have a layout architecture, which is flexbox, and using flexbox you can like create layouts for yourself. So we have, whenever I say display flex, it's going to like change the layout. Like currently it's not changing anything, but it's going to like change the layout, uh, and then you can adjust it to make a layout that you want. So I set it display flex. Then uh, I want to align this to center, so I'll say align items to center, and then uh, justify the content to center. Now, what this does is like, whenever you define something like flex, it's going to have a like a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. Okay, uh, so here in case of flex, if you don't specify the direction, so the major axis is going to be considered as the horizontal axis, which is basically everything would be aligned in a single row. Okay, and then if you align them to center, then it would be like centering with respect to the horizontal, with respect to the rows. And if you say justify content as center, then it would like adjust with respect to the columns. But in our case, we just want it to be like in the dead center, so we don't really have to care much about it, because anyways this is going to come in the center. So you'll see that okay, it's in the center now. So now we have defined few parameters for the screen. Now we can move ahead, and we have this container, which is basically like this main section, which wraps almost everything here. So I'm going to specify some styles to that container too. So the container is going to have a height for sure. So the height should be something around 600 pixels, and you can also pass in a display. Currently, I'm having a height of 600 pixels. Let's also say display flex, because we want to create a different layout based on our needs, right? So I'll say display flex, but this case, I'll say that the flex direction is going to be column. So so that everything is like, the main axis is actually the vertical axis. So that's why we have this flex direction as column. Then if you actually check this out, you'll see that okay, there are a few changes here, because this all this thing is being like, we have this flex direction as column, but we don't have a justification of spaces here. So for that, you have to just add in justify content, and you can say this is space around. So you'll see that all of a sudden this actually takes up the space that it should take. Okay, so and we can have this align items at center, so that we can keep those stuff in center. But currently, I guess we don't need it, so let's just avoid it. Okay. Now I will move forward to design the button. So for the button, let's say if you actually look at the button, it's this search button. It has some styles already applied, so but we don't want those styles. So we'll override those styles by passing the background as the variable that we have mentioned here, which is button primary. And then after that, we have like uh, the color, which is basically the text color, and it's going to be like text primary. So if you, I'll save it so that it reflects out. So you'll see that it has that changes have been reflected here once I save. So because I'm using this I'm using this live server extension, which basically hot reloads everything for me. So now I have this button. I'll add a bit of padding, which is like 3 pixels or something, and then maybe I don't want that border, so I'll just say that the border to be none. I'll add the padding. I'll say let's add some border radius or something. Okay, so the border radius to be like 10 pixels something, and then you'll see that okay, we see that now the changes are coming into effect. So the border radius basically like rounds it, uh, but this is not looking that good. So because we have to do some changes here. So what are those changes? So if you go to inside the container, we have this like three sections, basically a paragraph. We have this form, and we have this thing called details. So if I search details here, so I'll see that now I have a selector for that. So I'll just add a flex of one. So basically this is going to take like most of the space, and rest of the space is going to be like distributed based on uh, like the rest of the space is going to be distributed between this Git Finder and username and stuff. Okay, so now in the container also, I'd like to add some padding so that it looks better. So padding of one rem or something, so that it looks a bit better. Then in the heading, we have this uh, font size. So in the heading, we have this font size. Uh, so like, eh, I guess I have a power cut. So is it okay? No, it's fine. Okay, okay, fine, fine. So I'll just add a font size, which is based on like 1.5 rem. So these REMs are nothing but units. Like these are units for CSS, which basically says that 1.5 times the root element. So if you check this out, the Git Finder has been like taken more space here. The font size of Git Finder is increased. Okay. Now in this container, I would also specify some more things like I want to specify the width to be like 500 pixels, or let's say 520 pixels, so that it takes a bit uh, more space and everything looks adjusted. Okay. Then let's give that container, which is if we look at our example which we have this Git Finder, we have this search form here. So let's start designing. Okay, let's just give this screen the color that it should have. So we'll go to screen. I'll just pass in the background, and then I've already created a variable for this, which is secondary, and then the colors have changed. Okay, so now it's like hard to see a few things, but we'll like make it work. Just a minute. So we have this background as variable of this, and now let's start designing that search form. Okay, so basically we have this search form, which is going to have a background of uh, I've passed a variable for this too, which is background primary, and you will see that it has taken effect, and we can add more stuff. So now we can add a padding, so it like looks a bit more spacey and good. Then we can add a display of flex here. Okay, so that everything is like in row wise. I can align them in the center or justify them according to my needs. So I can align items to the center. Then I can justify the contents like space space around. I'll justify them like space around, and I've added the padding of 10 pixels. Now we have this. If you look at it, this will become a bit more spacey and it looks a bit better. We can add a border radius to this. So border radius of 15 pixels. So and okay, I guess it's a bit more. So 10 pixels. 10 pixels is fine. Okay. Now this search form input is basically this input that we have here, and we have to design that because it's taking very less space here. But ideally, we want it to like take more space here, most of the space. So I'll just uh, pass a width to that thing, and I'll say that width to be like 70% or something. So now it's taking like 70%, but we can maybe add up more. So we can actually have this like 80%. Okay. And then I guess uh, we do have we have this width of 80%, but the styles are not that good. So we can just remove the background, which is white currently. So I can say background is going to be none. The color is going to be like text primary, so that whenever I search, it looks it is clear to me. Okay, so I didn't save it, so I save it, and you see that okay, it looks a bit better, but we still have that border and outline. So I'll just say that the border should be none, and I'll also say that the outline should be none, and I'll pass important to this. So whenever you like want this to be like take effect for sure in any case, then you have to pass an important. So you'll see that okay, now it looks a bit similar. Okay, now it's looking fine. Now let's first let's adjust this spacing which we have, which is not that good, or else we'll just adjust the spacing at the end also. Now let's design this part, which is the details part. So we have this details thing, and here also we want the background to be like background of something. I have that variable, which is the background of primary background. So if I save it, so you'll see that okay, it almost covers everything because I've given it a flex of 1. So maybe I can like remove the flex of 1 and pass a height of 400 pixels or something, so that I want it to be like 400 pixels only. Now it looks a bit similar. Now in the border radius, we can add some border radius, and this would be like okay, border radius. So border radius is 15 pixels. So like you don't need to remember all this, but like I do have practice, so I basically remember this. Or uh, now we can add a bit of padding so that the space looks good, and the padding is 1 rem. So why I'm using this rem, because this is a relative unit. This will help you like to scale the application. Basically it helps in responsive design also. So you basically like have a base, and then everything else is like styled, or the width or height is given based on the uh, relative unit. Okay, so this is like we have the 16 pixels as base, and then I want this to be like the padding to be 16 pixels, so I pass 1 rem to it. If I want it to be like 1.2 times the base, then I will pass it 1.2 rem. So in that case, so we have this 1 rem. It looks a bit spaced, and that's good. So now I'll just look at this index.html structure, and we'll say that we have this personal thing, which basically is going to have a avatar, which is the image, and a heading and a paragraph. So you can like uh, give it a display flex, and because we want these two things, like currently these two things are actually like one over the other, like in a column fashion. So like it is as you see here. So if I go to this thing, we will have the div above and then the paragraph below. But I don't want that to happen. I want it to be like uh, I want it to be like a row, so that we have this image, and after that, towards the right, I have this image here. Sorry, we have this image, and towards the right, I have this heading here. So for that, I'll say display flex, because it uh, by default is going to have the row the direction as a row. You can change it to column, which we did like in uh, which we did above for that complete container. So we have a display flex, which is going to align it in a row, and then you can have a justify content and space around, which gives a bit of space. Now we have this user avatar. Currently there is no avatar, so let's just specify a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels, so that uh, we can see this, and we can also pass in a background, which would be any color. Like you can pass in any color. So let's pass a grayish color, and then I want the border radius to be 50%. So what this does is like we are having the width as 100 pixels, we are having the height as 100 pixels. So if I pass the border radius to be 50%, it would eventually become a circle, and that's the case. Like it's actually going to become a circle. So you'll see that we have a circle here. So now instead of this space between, we can kind of have the space around too, but then uh, this would like the structure would not be as expected. So if I remove this, everything is just going to be starting from uh, the initial position. For example, like where this thing ends, after that this thing starts, and I can add padding to this so that I can get the structure that I want. Okay, so I pass display flex, width, height, and style the avatar. Now we have this text. Now what is this text? So if you'll see that we have this div with this ID of text, and inside that we just want to add a bit of padding, and you can again add it as a root element like this. But we don't want the padding to be like, we don't want the padding above or below. Padding one rem is going to set the padding from all the sides, like top, bottom, left, right, but we want that to be like only on the x-axis. So for that I'll just pass a 0 and then one rem. So what this is going to do is, this is actually the padding which is top and bottom, and this is on the x-axis which is left and right. So now this looks a bit better. Now we have this username thing, which is basically the heading, the username. You can add a color here, which is text primary. So you'll see that the username now looks a bit better. And here I can pass in the color, which is the bio, uh, as text secondary. So you'll see that we have this username and we have this is bio stuff. Now this looks a bit sticky, so we can also add more space to it. Either you can add padding to this, like to the H1, or else you can add a margin. So in this case, I'll just add a margin top here. So uh, a margin top of something like 16 pixels, 16 pixels. So now it looks a bit better than previous. So you'll see that we have this covered, and now we are going to display some stats in this format. So let's design that. We have this stats here. We're going to place the background, and this is going to take a variable, and that is the background stats. So you'll see, okay, the background is in effect at least, but here the space is evenly distributed, and you already know that how you can distribute the space evenly. Just go to the parent element, which is uh, this details element, and here you can say that this is going to be a display of flex, and now the direction should be like column, because you want everything to display one below the other. So the flex direction could be like column, and then you can have a justify content, just space around, so that it is evenly distributed now. So now let's continue styling this stats. Uh, so I'll go to stats. We have this background of like background stats, but we want to like make some changes here. So you'll see that in the HTML, I have this stats class, and inside it I have defined like I have created a table, which is table, and we have this table head and tr and all this stuff. So instead of like designing something here, now we have to design this table, and I have already defined some selectors here, which is table for that complete selector. So you can have this as a width of 100%, so that it scales the complete width of its parent. And then we have this t header. First of all, I want them to be having a width of 33.333%. So why this? Because there are like three headers, and I want them to be like equally distributed. So you'll see that they are now equally distributed here. Okay, and same goes for like now in case of like the t header and th here, I want to do for the table heading. I want to give a text color to that table headers, which is text secondary, and this will like take effect as repos, followers, and following. Now the next thing is we have the TD, which is we have this TD, which is basically the table data. So currently 000. This is all going to change dynamically using JavaScript, but currently we are just styling it. So hang on to that. So we have this TD where you can like place this font size of 2em. I guess 2em is a bit okay. 2em is fine. 2em is fine, and we can have this color to be primary so that it's more visible. So we use this var syntax, which is basically inside this var, I can use any of this variable which I've defined so that I don't have to write that exact color again and again. I can just define a variable and then you reuse it again and again, which is a good practice and you should follow it. So we have this text primary color and you'll see that it looks better. Now again, we also want this to be similar to the heading, like take equal space. And in case of the heading, we did width of 33.33%, and the same thing is going to work here too. If you just, okay, so I'll just save. Oh, okay, so this is giving us a problem because maybe the text align is not at the center. So yeah, so the text align was not in center because these are numbers. So the text alignment of numbers and these headers or strings are basically a bit different. So we had not passed this text align to be center. So if I remove this, this is not going to obey the rules. But then if I align this to like text center, then it's going to get aligned. But in case of th, it's always going to be like we already have those styles, which is like the text line should be center. So we have this table header, we have this th, and hence this were like aligned center. And but these are the tds, which is table data. Hence this was not having uh, the align center, which we had to do manually. Okay, so now it looks a bit similar, but still there are like few things remaining. So we can go back to stats. We can add a bit of padding, 0.5 rem or something. Okay, and then we can also add a border radius of, let's say, 10 pixels, so that okay, now it looks a bit better. I guess this is more or less it. Like it looks a bit similar. Okay, so we won't just sit on perfectioning this design again and again. So I guess this is fine. We can move on to this thing, which is so now I explained you about Flex. So if I had to do it, if I had to do this with Flex, I'll first show you the HTML structure. So inside a parent, we are having like four span, which are grid member, grid member, grid, and it says like not available. Currently, the text is not available, and we have this. This is all like displayed on to the same line. But if I use Flex, I would have to create a like I would have to create two rows. Hence, it would like need a lot of parent divs. So I have to, basically I would wrap this two into a div, then this two things into a div, and then create a layout using Flex. So we have another option, like you can also create layouts using grid. So for that you just say display grid, and basically everything inside this. So this is additional data, and everything inside this would uh, be like shown as a grid. So we have this not available, not available. Now this doesn't look as a grid because we have to do some changes. That is, you have to kind of specify a template. So for that, grid. I'll specify this grid template columns, and that would be like we want only two of them to be onto the same line. So that would be like one fractions and one fractions, and you'll see that it's done on its own. So it's a bit easier than Flex. Well, it's opinionated. Like I even though it's easier, I still use Flex most of the time. So now in the grid member, what you can do is you can have a font size, because it's the font size is currently a bit small, which is we can also use these larger, medium, small stuff. So if you want to see what that does, like you'll see that they basically give the like increase the size accordingly. Now I've given a font size is larger. I can have this text line as center so that it is a line center, and we have this grid now, not available, not available. Okay, so but here it's a bit spaced, and you can also achieve the same thing if you want like grid or template rows by giving a kind of template like what should be the height and all. Or else you can also go to grid member, and you can manually specify a height that you want to give. For example, if you want to give a height of 20 pixels, let's say you want to give a height of 20 pixels, so 20 pixels didn't affect a lot. So let's say it's like 40 pixels, and now they look a bit spaced. So now almost we have like this completely done. Just the color of this thing. So you can have this as, you can just provide a color which is variable, and this is text secondary, and we have achieved the same styles again. Yeah, just one thing is missing. This Git Finder should be a color of white, and that was the header. So I'll just go to this heading here, and there I can just say color text primary, and yeah, so we have this, like we have done this already. We got this. Now here we, in the search, you'll see that this looks a bit different because this is not having that space, enough space as compared to this. So for that, you can explicitly specify a height. We are using border boxes. We are using the box sizing as border boxes, and it adjusts based according to the needs. So for that, I'll just go to the button, and so we have this button, and we can specify this height here. And that is like, if you want, or else if you are okay with that, then so you see that height is a bit increased. Let's make it like 40 pixels, and we'll also increase the width a bit, which is not 100 pixels. Let's see. Okay, it's a bit too big. We can have this 70 pixels, and that would be fine. Okay, so we have this 70 pixels, and now this looks like almost same. So I guess we are done with the styling. Now we have to just do the JavaScript. Okay, so we are done with this styling thing. Yeah, cool. So now I'll just go to script here, and now I want to like add functionality to this thing that I have already designed. So now if I like write HTTK07 and hit enter, you'll see that it reloads and it happens. Like some or the other thing happens, but we don't see the result that we wished to see. So for that, first of all, whenever you want to like interact with the DOM or something, you have to like get the DOM, and for that you'll use the DOM API, which is the Document Object Model API, which is provided by JavaScript. So you can pass in a selector, and based on the selector, you will get an object which is going to represent that DOM. So what do I mean by all this? I can just specify a variable, let's say constant, and let's say it's form. So this is like document dot query selector. And then in this selector, you can pass like anything. So what should, like you can pass the form itself, but if there are a lot of forms in your uh, if there are a lot of forms, then this is only going to match like one form. So you can most of the time use classes or IDs. So currently I'm going to use class. So I'll just add a dot. So these are like very similar to the CSS selectors. Not similar, you can say this is exactly CSS selector only. Now if I console.log this, console log this form, you'll see into the console this, you'll have this form thing, and you'll see that this object which is given to me by JavaScript is representing something onto this HTML structure. Okay, and you can basically do a lot of things with this. So now I don't want to do a lot of things, but I just want to like add a event listener to this. So basically it's something that should happen based on the event which is triggered. So I'll just say form dot add event listener, and that event, the name of the event is on submit. Okay, and then now this is going to take like two parameters, which is the name of the event, and the other parameter is going to be the function that should run based on like whenever this event is triggered. So like you can create a function. Let's create a function. So let's call it callback. So such functions are called callback because these are like called when this thing is triggered. That's why we call it a callback. Okay, you can use any name here. You can give your name too, but let's keep it a callback here. So this is going to have a callback, and this callback will actually take a event object. So if you'll see that I'll do console.log of this event too, because almost everything in JavaScript is an object. So you can console.log anything, and you can inspect what is going on in the case, like what is going on when. So if I hit enter, you'll see that it did reload. So now because of this, it adds this thing username is equal to sdf something, and then it reloads, and that's why I'm not able to see my JavaScript, right? So if you want to see your JavaScript, we don't want this to like reload. We want this to like stay on the same page, and we don't want this to be reload. So that is basically preventing something that is done by the DOM. And if you want to do that, you can just say event dot prevent default. So we have this event dot prevent default, and if I now type something, okay, sorry, this name is wrong. On submit is something which we use in React, not in HTML. Okay. Just a minute, I guess I messed up. This is running on port number 5500. So I'll just add 5500, then index.html, like something like this. This is, I guess, zoomed out, so I'll just zoom it to 100%, and then I'll go to the console. Now, if I write something, you'll see that we have this submit event or something that we get based on this console.log event. But we don't want to console.log event. We want to basically call an API. We want to basically call an API and then get that user data from that API and display that onto a DOM. So for that, you basically want to call this DOM, and the username is entered here. So you want this username. So there are like many ways to do this. One simple way would be to get this input element using the document.query selector thing. Then we have this like you'll actually see the class name here. We can see the class name here, and that is we have an ID of username, and so we can basically use that ID itself. Or else we just have only one input element, so you can just simply write input. Okay. So now if I console.log this input, if I console.log this input, you'll see that whenever I write something and I hit enter, it gives me the input, but I don't want that input. I want the value of that input. So that's basically input that value. And now if I write something, I hit enter, I get this value which I wanted. So we have this console.log input.value, and we have this value, and we have to use this value to query the API. Now for that, you'll actually need an API. And for that, to use an API, you should need that string. You need that URL. So like you are not, I've not remembered that URL. So I'll just copy this URL. Okay. So that is something I created previously. So I'll just copy that URL. So this is a URL, basically something like is very similar to a site's URL, and this is going to using this we will query for the username or whatever you want. Okay, so I can query everything here only, but you can use like modular code, and you can actually create a function which would say fetch results or fetch users or whatever. like fetch user. So I'll just say fetch user, and this is going to take a username. This is going to take a username here, and then I want to pass the username to this fetch user, and using this fetch user function, I'll fetch the results for that user. So there are two ways to do this. Again, like we are going to use fetch API, and with fetch API, it actually returns us something called as promise. We'll see what that is. Okay, so I just want to return something, so hence I wrote return, then fetch, and in fetch, I'm going to paste that URL. So you can get this URL from the GitHub API docs too. Now it's going to take something as this then. We are going to chain a then to this fetch. What that means is, like, this fetch won't return you the data. Okay, then why are we doing this? But the reason is, if I console.log this fetch and I run this function, okay, this fetch user. If I run this function and I console.log that thing uh, here, you'll see that it returns something, which is, it returns a promise. Okay, so okay, I hadn't passed this username, that's why this failed. So if I pass the username as JCK007, so this is going to console.log a promise. This is not the data that we want. It's basically returning me a promise. And what is this promise? This promise is something like, uh, this code promises me to return the data, but it hasn't returned the data just yet. It will return the data maybe in the future. So we create a promise, then in the future either that promise is resolved or either that promise is like rejected, and based on that we get our data. So I just want to tell the JavaScript interpreter that whenever you do this fetch, whenever you do this fetch, you're going to eventually return me a promise. When that promise is resolved or rejected, then do this stuff. Hence dot then. Okay. Then do some stuff. So it's going to like give me a result or something. Okay. And that result is a JSON. Result is a JSON object. Like it's in JSON form, JavaScript object notation. But if I console.log this result, and if I run this, then you will see that it's not the data that we want because it's in the JSON format, stringified format. Then I want this to be like passed as a JSON. So this is the result object or the response object. I want it to like convert into a JSON thing, which is also a synchronous uh, operation. And then we have this data, and I can return this data here. So the syntax might look a bit confusing, but like we will cover what is this syntax or this arrow function and stuff. Uh, so dot then we have this data and we return that data. So whenever I'll call this fetch user, I'll basically get that data. So let's say constant user data is equal to fetch user, and then we pass in the value which was entered into the input, which is basically the input dot value, and we save it. Now, if I console.log user data, uh, it won't give me the data again. So why it won't give you data? Because this is actually returning this fetch, which is eventually going to return your promise. So you have to wait until that promise has resolved. So we can use this dot then syntax too, but one more kind of way is to use this async keyword, which basically says that this is an async function and we will wait until this is resolved. So for that, you'll pass a wait here. Now if I console.log the data, if I console.log the data, you'll see that whenever I type in SDCK007, which is my GitHub username, it gives me this avatar URL and bio and all the stuff. Now we get this data and we just have to fill this here. So how do we fill this? Again, we can use that DOM API only. I guess we are already up time. So I'll just show you how do we fill like 1, 2, or 3 data. Like we can fill this username, we can fill this bio, we can fill this image, and then the rest of it you can try it on yourself. And maybe if you have any problem, we have a Discord server where we can resolve your problems, so that it's also a practice for you. Okay. So we have this console.log user data, and we basically want to get uh, the username out of this data, which is user.username. Uh, so yeah, user.name, and we can get the bio as user.bio and the avatar URL, which is basically the image. So I'm going to just get that header tag, uh, which is this h1, which has this username currently here, and uh, I want this to be username is equal to document dot query selector, and pass in the username class, which is this. Then whenever I get this data, I would just want to like tell the JavaScript interpreter that whenever you get this data, use this username thing and set the inner text to be the user data dot user. Okay. If I save this, I go back here, I click on it, I write my username, and okay, so it currently it returned undefined because I guess I wrote the wrong name. This is not user data dot data, user data dot user, because there is nothing called as user. We have this user data dot name property, and if I write this as user data dot name, you'll see that whenever I ask for my username, it's going to return me uh, my name, which is on GitHub. Okay. Now the same can be done with the bio too. So you can simply get this, like repeat this, call it a bio, and then this should be dot bio, which is a class name for that particular element, and then bio dot inner text. We have this bio dot inner text, and we have this user data dot bio. So now, along with the name, you'll also see that it also changes the bio, which is this. It changed the username, it changed the bio, and lastly, we can also do this for images too, but it won't be like that simple for images. In case of images, we are going to create an image and then we are going to append that into our HTML. So I just get this user avatar using the DOM API, this div. So this is user avatar. That is, let's call it user avatar or avatar. You can name them anything according to your need, whatever you find comfortable. So we have this user avatar, and then uh, this you need to create a image, right? You need to create an image. So for that, you can simply say document dot create element. So what is this document? This document is actually uh, like a root object for that document object model. Using this, you can actually do whatever you want. So like this, using this document, we use this query selectors for the document, and we get those as an object in JavaScript. So you can also create one. So let's say I've created this and I want to store this as something image. So constant image is equal to document dot create element image, or else I can just say constant img is equal to whatever name you want to give. Now this image should have a source, and that source is the user data dot avatar underscore URL that we get from here. So this avatar URL, use that, and we can also specify some more thing, which is use image.width, which can be 100 because our div is 100. Then you can also specify the height, image.height is equal to 100. And then what you want to do is you want to append this thing uh, into this div, which is avatar. So you can say avatar dot append child, and you can pass that img thing. So now if I go to HDCK007 and hit enter, you'll see that we do have this image, but this is not circle. Why this is not circle? You can go to the child with CSS, and to make it circle, you can just go to that user avatar thing, and you can say that the overflow uh, should be hidden, so that outside the circle you won't be able to see anything, and it's circular. So in the same way, you can also like get the DOM elements for these tags too, but we are already uptime. So this is consider this as an assignment or something, and you can have a try. If you don't get it, we might resolve this on Discord. So back again. I guess we have a chance to complete this. So let's just get going and let's complete this. We don't have much things left. So okay, let's continue this. So I'll go to script.js back again. So there are a lot of things yet remaining, but we will cover this up. So we create this array, which is prop social and stuff, and these are basically names that we get from the object. So these are like the props URL or the following you like whatever things the repos URL, and using that we can like mold accordingly what we want. Okay, so uh, I'll just get those DOM elements that I have to fill in. So a set of TDs, which is document dot query selector. But this time I am using document dot query selector all because I want to get all those table data nodes, like all these three. So I can pass in the selector as TD. Just think. Okay. So we have this TD, and I can traverse through this TD, like TD's dot for each, and we have this element. Now, what is this for each? This for each is an higher order component, but then yet again we don't have that much time to explain what are higher order component. So this is actually going to take two parameters. One is optional. So the first parameter would be element. The second parameter would be index, and then based on that you can do whatever you want. So if I console.log this element, you'll see that it's going to print an array of, like, it's going to print the set of table data nodes, these three, one after the other. But we don't want to print that. We want to like set the inner text element dot inner text of those to some values. And what are those values? So we also have this index. So we'll get this user data. Inside this user data, we'll use this prop, which is this array. And then inside that, I'll use this index. Okay. So what this does is, like, it's going to pass 0 for the first time. So prop of 0 is going to be public repos and user data. Like inside user data, it would search for, okay, inside user data, it would search for user repos. Uh, okay, I'll just comment it out because this is giving undefined because we haven't completed it yet. So if I press enter, you'll see that we get this and we have this user repos thing. We have this public repos, user repos, the thing which we have defined here. So inside prop, like inside user data, we'll search for these things one after the other, and we'll set that to the inner text of this element. Okay. So that's a good way to look stupid. So I'll share my screen. Okay. So what I've done now is I created these two arrays. I I created these two arrays. I added this TDs here, and I'm going to like loop through these TDs. TDs are for each, and I'll set this inner text of these TDs to some index, which is to some data which we get from the user data. So now, if I go to the document and search for 7, you'll see that we have these repos and followers and all those data listed up. Now, if we are going to do the same for we are going to do the same for uh, the grid members too. So you can say that these are like socials, and document query selector. We are going to have this uh, in this index.html. We're going to have this grid member as a selector. So it will select like all the grid members. So we'll have this grid member as a class, and then we have this socials dot for each, and again we take this element, we take this index, and then we have this element dot inner text equals to user data of prop dot props. We have this another array which is prop social. Okay, so we have this prop social here, and inside that we're going to pass in the index. So now if I add this HDCK007, hit enter, you'll see that we have this HDCK007, but we don't have like these two things, because whenever the data is not present, you're not going to print anything. So for that, you just have to like add or, and you can just say not available. Now, if I search for HDCK007, hit enter, you'll see that we are exactly getting what we wanted. So HDCK007, this is the finished thing, and this is what we created just now. So I hope you understood all of it. And if you have any questions, you can just put it in onto the comments.
I am
Thanks,
back
Jordan. Thanks,
with the
Jordan.
cap.
I would love to work with Google too.
Acha, so there is a Q&A session type where you can ask your questions right now, and Haridarshan and I can answer those questions. And also comment on how cool I look right now. Yep, Q&A right now. Are there any questions? Please put your questions on the chat box. Thanks, Nishtha. But yeah, can we see any stats using this? Haridarshan, can you just provide the another example to them, like the working of it? Haridarshan, you are not audible.
So that's again like another thing to do if you want to look stupid. Okay. So I'll just share you the live URL too, which is exactly the same. So I'll just share that in comments. I guess I can't. I'll share it to you, Aditya. Maybe you can, if you can
Yeah, sure.
pass it on forward. And you can like check for other users too, if you want.
Okay, I'll put it in the description later.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you can check that out. I'll put it in the comment box right now, and then you can also have it have a look at it later. Great. Any other questions? Okay, let's do one thing. If you don't have any questions right now, we can meet at 6:30. Okay, there's one question. Yeah, you can look forward to these amazing sessions ahead, because Haridarshan is our web dev domain head, and he has planned many sessions and has a roadmap that he's going to talk about it in a bit, and he has planned sessions that he would take throughout the year. So yep, if you are interested in web development, this was just like a Kickstarter session, and you will have many more sessions ahead of this, and not just web domain. You will also have sessions on other domains as well, and yeah, that's about it. That if you stay with us throughout the year, you will have a edge over others when it comes to hackathons, and also the Google Solution Challenge. And yes, we will also have a hackathon of our own, GDS's own hackathon next year. So yeah, we'll tell you about that too. So attend the sessions that would benefit you. Okay, so Jordan has a question for you, Haridarshan.
Okay, so you want to like know about event cycling. So basically, like there are, well, I guess you already know JavaScript, and so you are like asking about event cycling. So what we have is like there are two things, which is event bubbling and event capturing. Okay, and it always appears in cycle. So like bubbling is basically going up the hierarchy, capturing is basically coming down the hierarchy, and in any case you have to like complete that cycle. So either it bubbles up and then it bubbles up and then it captures in. So you can use this to like prevent some events. For example, if let's say you have four divs, one inside the other, and you click on the innermost div. Once you click on this innermost div, that event is going to bubble out to like the complete route, and then it's going to like it's having a cycle of bubbling and capturing, and you can place a capture, or you can basically bubble that event or basically capture that event based on your need, like whether you want to capture that event whenever it's coming down the hierarchy, or whenever you want to, or you want to bubble that event whenever it's going out the hierarchy. But in any ways, this is going to like complete a cycle, so like bubbling and then capturing.
And Jordan, like if you want a more detailed explanation, we are going to have sessions on this. So like this was a very basic idea of it, and this session itself was a very basic one for the beginners and somewhat intermediates. So yeah, for going into more details, we will have sessions on JavaScript. We are planning to have JavaScript, even the theory covered for JavaScript, and now I'll say that let's move the Q&A session to Discord. Like you can come to the Discord general server, the general voice channel, and we can answer questions over there. And yeah, that was it. So see you guys in the next sessions too. I hope decoding domains ka pehla session was very great. I am glad that Haridarshan was so amazing, and he had a power cut in between. He had forgotten the screen share, but everything worked out very perfectly well. So a great job by Haridarshan. So thank you, Haridarshan. And yeah, see you guys in the next session, that is tomorrow, for mobile dev. Bye bye, take care.